Session 12 is called Discipleship, a long-term process. And what I want to talk to you all about is the element of time inserted into discipleship. Because discipleship can be tiring. It can be repetitive. And it can feel like we hit the same dead end time after time after time. And it requires time. So I just want to talk to you about that. Some of you communicated yesterday that you've experienced churches that present discipleship as more of like a class, and it's like we learn discipleship and then we're done. Discipleship takes time, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday. What is the easiest answer? Why does discipleship take time? Why is it not just a one-time event? Why? Fill in the blank for me. In this life, we will always need discipleship because... Yeah. We will never reach a point in this life when we say, I think I'm enough like Jesus now. I think I could stop learning. I think I can stop growing. I think I'm there. Ooh. What does 1 John tell us? That if someone says he has no sin, he's a liar. The truth is not in him. So we always need this. We always need this. It is ongoing. Just a few texts. Somebody read that there. 1 Timothy 1:15, please. Thank you. Who said that? Paul. Okay, Paul was probably a pretty good guy as far as guys go, as far as Christians go. And yet quite a ways into his ministry, here we have the Apostle Paul saying, I am the worst. I am the worst sinner. I am the foremost of sinners. If that's true for Paul, I think it's certainly true for us. So I just share that passage to say that we never arrive to a point in this life when we can stop growing. We just don't. The next text is from 1 Thessalonians 5:14 and 15. Would someone read that, please? Thank you. This is a good passage just to remind us of some of what we're doing in discipleship. But I want you to, regarding the element of time, what phrase am I looking at specifically in those verses we just read? Be patient with them all. We are not good at that. We see somebody in sin. We want to tell them what to do, fix them right now, and the next time I see you, it had better be good. Don't struggle with this anymore. Okay. It doesn't work like that? No, of course it doesn't work like that. We need to be patient with each other. We need to be patient. As we continue, this is so interesting. We're admonishing the idle, encouraging the faint-hearted, helping the weak. And being patient with them all implies that we're doing these things over and over and over. Brian and I were just talking about children. Sometimes you need to tell your children the same thing over and over. It's like, I just disciplined you for this yesterday. Here you are doing it again today. Okay. Huh? Yeah, 5 minutes ago. 5 minutes ago. Yeah. So what this passage implies is that we're repeating ourselves. It doesn't say admonish the idle one time and then give them no more chances. No, we're continuing on patiently as we're seeking to help each other become more like Christ. Let me tell you a quick story. I've already mentioned him. He's a true cowboy. The guy in our church from northern Montana, the wild child. We have been discipling him. He's been participating in discipleship now for several years. And he has probably the worst issues with anger of anybody in the church that I'm aware of. I mean, he was a very angry man, a very angry man. And we need to think not in terms of days or weeks to see progress in people, but maybe months, maybe years. And after 3 years of seeing this man grow, he used to explode in anger this much, and now he's like this much. We would love it if he would get to here, but he's gone from here to here. And for that cause, we celebrate, and we keep going. We keep going. We're patient with him because we see the Spirit of God working in him, and God has a timeline. It's better than ours. We often think in terms of when we would like to see things happen. God is not a slave to our timeline. God has his own timeline. And he has chosen. God, think about this. The moment of your conversion, God could have said, okay, done, up to glory with me. But he doesn't. He leaves us here that we might grow in sanctification, that we might become more like Jesus and spread the fame of Jesus around the world. God intends for the rest of our lives to be given to growing. And that requires patience. It requires repetition. It requires the same things over and over and over. And when we see progress, either in ourselves or in someone else, even if it's we go from here to here, stop and celebrate. I think, when Andy Farmer comes out to talk about counseling with you all, you are going to love that. Andy's a friend of mine, and he's excellent. He will talk to you more about this, but if there's movement in the right direction, even just incrementally, good. God is working. God is growing this person. Maybe not as fast as we would like, but they are moving in the right direction. And this teaches us patience. This teaches us long-suffering. And if we get impatient with people, we need to pause and be grateful for the people, the other saints who have been patient with us. We all have sin. We could all go around and share what they are right now. We all have sin in our life that we have been fighting for years. Right? And praise God that other saints are patient with us and that we aren't cast out the first time we fall back into that sin. Am I right? So, others have been tremendously patient with us. We are called to be tremendously patient with the other saints. This is just part of discipleship. So let's speak about it very specifically. Here's what it takes to do long-term discipleship. And these were just off the top of my head, but I put commitment. So what do I mean by commitment? Well, I mean you need to show up. You need to show up. If you commit to being a part of, say, a discipleship group or a community group, you need to be there. You need to be there. And we are having a hard time with this in our church right now because we have some people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are very serious. One of them, I've mentioned him to you. His name is Craig. He's a farmer. He farms a lot of land, and he's very, very busy. During the harvest season, he is often out in the fields from sunrise until 2 a.m. I mean, he's spending 16 hours a day working. But he commits, but he leads one of our community groups as well, and he will be there. He will stop farming. He will leave the field to be there. And he will leave the field to be at his discipleship group because he made a commitment, right? And we have young people, on the other hand, 19-year-olds who commit to also being part of the groups, but they don't show up because, I wanted to sleep in, or I decided I'd rather go do this, and just they don't understand commitment, and it starts with us, you guys. If we're going to be implementing and modeling how to do these things, you've got to be there. You've got to be there as church leaders and as future church leaders. Show people that it is good to make a commitment and to be there. Show up. That means text your group during the week. I told you we have our own WhatsApp group chat. Check in with people. So occasionally, once or twice a week, even if there's not a crisis, just I'm in my devotions and I read something that strikes me, I'll text my discipleship group. Brothers, I read this morning. Hope it encourages you. How are you doing? Right? I am committing to these guys. So it takes commitment. It takes courage. What I mean by that, it takes courage on two fronts. It takes courage to ask hard questions. Here's what a discipleship, especially at first, we're uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable asking hard questions and answering hard questions. So discipleship group can look like a guy showing up and saying, I struggle, this is the phrase, I struggled with lust a little bit this week. And then they move on in the conversation. It's like, okay, no, pause. Ask them, do it. Ask the hard question. Brother, did you look at pornography this week? That's a hard question to ask. That's a hard question to ask, especially when you haven't created this culture yet and you're trying to develop that in these guys. It takes courage to ask these hard questions. What did you do? Don't try to water it down. I struggled with lust. What does that mean? Tell me what that means. What happened? And it takes courage to answer those hard questions and to be open about what we have. Whether it's and with our young guys in the church, I'm speaking. That's primarily that comes up a lot in discipleship groups. Our men are set up for failure in that regard. Anyway, I could go on about pornography, how accessible and wicked it is, but that's a big issue with men everywhere, I think. But we need courage to ask specific, hard questions. Oh, you did? Did you confess to your wife? Does she know? Does she have any idea, or are you lying to her? And you guys, we need to create a culture of asking hard questions. And you've already told me. You've told me that people don't ask for help, but would people be ashamed to share the details of their sin here in general? Yeah? Is that fair to say? It takes commitment, it takes courage, it takes patience, which is kind of the theme here. We need to look for change in people and ourselves over months and years, not over days and weeks. Now, with that said, I would also say it depends on what's going on. So if you're in a discipleship group with somebody, and he comes to you and tells you, "Hey guys, I sinned. I fell into a new sin this week." "Oh, really? What'd you do?" "Well, I started selling cocaine. I'm thinking about killing somebody." Or something probably more realistic, "I'm having an affair." There are some things that we're not going to say, let's work on it. Let's pray about it, and let's look for some change over the course of months or years. No. Jesus gives us language for amputation. Some sins we need to cut off, right? Let the thief steal no more. Not wait until he has a heart change. Hopefully someday. No, let him steal no more. So you will need wisdom and discernment. Some things have got to stop for the sake of someone's safety and the safety and integrity of others. Some things need to stop right now. So for example, if someone told me in my discipleship group, hey, I cheated on my wife this week, I would say, are you going to tell her or am I? Because it's happening today. I would do that. Maybe, maybe you could argue with how to handle that. Maybe that's an emotional reaction from me, but I would. Nope, this is going to stop right now. And what are we going to do about it? We're making a plan right now. Let's get the pastor on the phone if we need to. Let's get some help. We're going to get some guys together. We're going to pray. We're going to go with you. This is happening. So depending on what's, now if it's something, now, so compare something like that with, you guys, I let my anger get the best of me, and I snapped with my speech. I snapped at my children again in a way that was sinful. Okay, nobody's dying. The integrity of a marriage is not in jeopardy. You see, so I'm going to treat something like that a little differently than I'm cheating on my wife or whatever. And I probably won't, but I won't share specific examples, but I will tell you that there have been times where it's been more drastic, like, okay, we need to do something and do it right now. We cannot let you continue in what you're doing because of the severity of it. So what if it's somebody who maybe they have just started, typical stories, something like, I went to church as a kid, I haven't been in 20 years, I'm just coming back, to church, and maybe they're showing up and their life is a mess. I'm married to my wife, but I'm living with this woman, and these sorts of things. Yeah, I would handle that differently. I'm glad you brought that up. I would handle that differently. Yes, I'm thinking primarily in the context of covenant and members of a church confessing Christ, all of that. Something like that, we're going to view that more as evangelism, I think. I think the day would need to come, and pretty quickly, when that guy is challenged, and say, hey, if you want to take your faith seriously, can we look at what Scripture says about you and your wife and fidelity and all of this? So that day would need to come quickly. But I'm really glad you brought that up. I would handle the situation differently. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Good question. Humility. It takes humility. Humility means being willing to listen well. It means being willing to ask good questions and being willing to go out of your way to serve them. Humility is interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard this said. I believe it's true. Humility is the only thing that I'm aware of. It's the only thing that you get better at by not focusing on yourself. If someone's a basketball player, how do they get better? Well, they go practice. They shoot free throws. They work on their jump stop. Whatever. Humility, you actually get better at humility by focusing on yourself less. You grow in humility by focusing on other people more. And it just kind of happens. So being in a discipleship relationship that's going to be stretched out over months or years requires humility, because you're going in saying, this is not just about me. This is about my brothers who I'm meeting with, and I'm here to be grace to them. So it requires having genuine concern and care for other people. You will be fed. You will be built up as well. Of course you will. But you need to go in with the attitude of, how am I going to serve my brothers this week? Requires humility. Okay? And perseverance. You will hear the same things over and over in a discipleship group, and that's just life. And I gave up. So this is just funny. I felt a pressure when I first became a pastor. I felt a pressure like at every meeting, at every hard conversation, I must have something wise to give them and to say. I gave up on that really quickly because I just don't. I just don't always have, here's something that will fix your sin. I don't have that. The term we would use is, I don't have the silver bullet to fix your problem. More often than not, I'm hearing what's going on. Yep, same as last week. Okay. Brother, let's go. Let's go back here. Let's go back to the Word. What has God said? Let me pray for you. How can I help you? Let me encourage you. I'm going to call you on Wednesday and ask how you're doing. These sorts of things. You guys, it's monotonous. It's not flashy. It's not impressive. It's often boring. There are sometimes I've been to a discipleship group where it's like, wow, this was exactly the same as our meeting last week. The same people dealing with committing the same sins, confessing them, reading, and we get frustrated, and is this even worth it? The answer is yes, it is. Yes, it is worth it. It is worth it. I told you, and this was more evangelistic, but I told you I had coffee with my good friend every week for 2 years before I saw any change, any softening toward the gospel. It was worth it. It was worth it. Listen, you are told to be faithful. God is going to say to us, well done, my good and faithful servant, not my good and fruitful servant. The fruit is not up to you. It is above your pay grade. The fruit is not up to you. You are called to be faithful. You are called to be faithful. So meet with your guys. Show up. Be there. Ask the same questions. Say the same prayers. I like the beginning of Philippians 3 when Paul says, finally, brothers, rejoice in the Lord. To say these same things, it's not a problem for me, and it's good for you. In other words, you've heard this said before, I'm going to say it again. One thing C.J. Mahaney has said, we need to be same things Christians. We're not coming up with any new ideas. It's not like, oh, I'm going to show up to discipleship group this week. I found some secret wisdom, this hidden nugget of truth. This will fix it. Nope. We've got it all right here. We need to hear the same things every week. And we need to trust God to progressively, incrementally change us into the image of His Son. And it takes time. And that is by God's design. So it is very good. They should stop stealing. I would want to know what is the person's relationship to the church. So for example, we had a homeless man he started coming to church. And he took a few things. They weren't big things. And we thought, okay, what do we do here? Do we confront him immediately and scare him away? We didn't. We eventually did. Because we realized he is not actually interested in the Christian life and growing into a part of this church. He's not. He's interested in taking advantage of us. We learned that, observing him over some time. Once that became clear to us, we were in a position to confront him. Now, so it depends on the severity. So I would say if someone is stealing a few dollars out of the offering, I would keep an eye on it. But someone taking phones and that sort of thing, personally, I would confront that immediately. That's me. It's different from 100 years ago, but we need these. For work, for communication, for so much, we use these. We've become dependent upon them. They're tools and instruments that we use in our daily life. So if someone was coming in taking something as serious as that, I'd say, okay, because part of our job as a shepherd, the shepherd protects the sheep and cares for them. And so if someone is coming in and is causing harm to the flock overall, yeah, I would confront that person. If it was something that serious, they're coming in and taking phones and that sort of thing, yeah, I would. And here's a little good piece of advice someone gave me. We started having more and more homeless people coming to the church, and I thought, ooh, I don't really know how to interact with homeless people. I've never really done that. So I called my friend who's also a pastor in a much larger city, and I said, can you give me some advice? And he said, yes. He said, we deal with a lot of homeless people. He said, and here's what we've learned. If someone comes in who is needy or homeless, if they actually want help, you give them the plan. In other words, they need to play according to your rules. If they actually want help, they will do that. They'll say, yeah, sure. I want to get back on my feet. I want to do well in life. I want to get a job. And we say, okay, here's how we can help you. And we give them a plan. And if they actually want help, they will follow it. If they don't actually want help, but they want to take advantage of you, as soon as you offer them a plan, nah. So we had for example, one man who was coming to church for about a month or two. He kept calling and asking for money. He wanted money. He wanted money. He wanted money. We weren't giving him money. And I said, Tim, what do you need money for today? Well, man, I'm just hungry. I need to eat. I said, okay. I said, I tell you, I'll come get you. Let's go get lunch together. No. He didn't want money for food. He was lying. We learned later that he had a drug habit and he wanted money to buy drugs. So you give someone, oh, you really want help? We're happy to help you as a church. That's part of why we're here. Here's what that would look like. So for example, this person who's stealing, hey, brother or sister, whoever they were, we love that you're here. Part of what it means to be a part of this church is we honor each other. We're going to respect each other and their property. So we're just asking you to not be taking people's stuff. And if you do, we can't in good conscience let you be a part of what's happening here, because it would become destructive to this body. But if you're willing to stop, we'd love to have you here. We would gladly welcome you into this family. So you give them a plan, and they either play ball or they don't. That's my thoughts. I don't know. Do any of you, what thoughts do you all have? Yeah, so no, that's a good question. So first of all, even as the pastor, I participate in one of these discipleship groups. So I'm in a group with 3 other guys from the church. And I'm careful about we built this group with the right guys. Because I think as the pastor, you just want to be careful to guard your life a little bit. And but even we as the pastors, we're members of the church. We need to be confessing our sin and all of this too. So I'm in a D group with 3 other guys, and first I'm very faithful to that. I go to my discipleship group. On top of that, like in addition to discipleship groups though, there are a lot of people who would be good investments of my time. And so the other elders for sure. So because that's part of my job is growing the actual existing leadership team. And next would be the community group leaders, because that's who we're looking to for next for elders. And then after that, I need to just have friends in the church, like guys I can just hang out with, and it's not like formal discipleship, it's not training, it's just like, I am their pastor in that moment, but it's like I take off the pastor hat and I put on the friend hat, and we can just hang out, go fishing, whatever, and it's just, and there's not the normal pressure I would have in like a more pastoral setting. That's an important thing too, but that what you're talking about is a very hard thing. I have so many people that it would be good to spend time with. How do I choose the right ones? That's basically what you're asking? A few things I would keep in mind. You cannot be everybody's best friend as the pastor. And you shouldn't be. You just can't be everybody's best friend. You can't be everywhere at once. And we're going to talk about this more later, probably tomorrow. Especially when we have families, you have to guard your family and your time. There's an expression, we see people too often sacrifice their family on the altar of mission. So it's like, for the sake of mission, I neglect my wife and kids and these sorts of things. Ooh. You have to guard your family. And so all of these play in. I wish there was like a whiteboard I could draw.
We have a whiteboard. We can set up.
Let's do that for the afternoon. Yeah, but there's kind of a paradigm to think through in terms of what do you say yes to and what do you say no to. You may have seen it, James. I don't know. Again, it's something I think CJ came up with. Was it about roles and goals? Yeah? Have you guys looked at that? I did. Yeah? I'm going to write that down. Let's talk about that once I get the whiteboard. It's just a helpful way to think through, okay, because people will be inviting you to everything. And everyone wants your time. And you just can't say yes to all of it. So how do you decide what to say yes to? Yes, that's an important tool to have, to tell people, I can't meet today, but what are you doing next Tuesday? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking about your question specifically. I think it depends on your specific role. So let me give you an example. When we first planted the church, I was the only elder. And so a lot of my time and attention was given to developing more leaders. Like that was my priority. I need to find other men to turn into elders. So I identified who those men were, and I gave them more time than I would give other people in that initial stage. So like right now, we're to the point where there are 2 of us as elders and 2 more men in ordination. So soon we'll have 4 of us. And there are, in addition to them, there are several other community group leaders. So now that we have some leadership in place, it's like, okay, I can focus more of my time on investing in the community group leaders because we have a more solid leadership team in place. So I would encourage you to think about in terms of priority. What does the church need right now? Well, we need to raise up more leaders, so I'm not alone. Okay, then that means in this next year or 2 or whatever, I'm going to be giving a lot of time to developing leaders. What does that look like? Once you have some more leadership in place, okay, you can start giving more time to other areas. It's helpful to have these conversations with your other church leaders, with your wife if you're married. Like we decided that twice a month we're going to have unbelieving friends to the house. And that in terms of our evenings during the week, emergencies are the exception, and I absolutely agree. Some things come up that we have to drop and say, we got to go. But in terms of regular schedule, we say, in addition to Sunday, we are going to give 2 nights a week to the church. When we first planted, it was more like 3 or 4 nights a week because there was just so much work to be done. We're to the point now where we're giving 2 nights a week because everything doesn't rest on us. I have another elder, I have 2 other guys in training, and I have community group leaders. They can share that load. So it doesn't all land on me anymore. So we've had to reevaluate that. So anyway, to answer your question, I think it comes down to what is the next thing that the church needs. And if it's more elders, for example, okay, then I'm going to be identifying and giving probably more time to developing leaders right now than I probably will be in 2 or 3 years, But we will talk more about this when we get the whiteboard. That'll be good actually. That's good. Specific, yeah. Yes. So for leadership development, that's an excellent paradigm to think in. But we spend time with people for other reasons too, for counseling. And I need to be around people at least once a week. I need to hang out with people who are just going to help me refresh and recharge me. Just friends where there's just no pressure. It's just I'm here just to enjoy your company. But that's in a different category from leadership development. So thinking through, okay, how much time am I going to give to leadership development, to things like counseling, to unbelievers in my life? Yeah. And you've got to find something that's sustainable. If it's not sustainable, you're going to burn out and you're going to crash. So just understand too, you're not going to build Christendom in a day. It's better that you remain useful. So don't stretch yourself so thin that you crash and burn. And some of this has been brought up in some questions up until now in direct and indirect ways. So a lot of this we will have already talked about. What are some common obstacles to discipleship? I think I've given you a number of them there. Let's just talk through them very quickly. Talk specific examples and how we might work against them. Because remember, as church leaders, we again, if there's a culture that needs to be changed or a trend that needs to start at the big picture level, I'm thinking especially at a planting level, it's got to start with us, and either that or it needs to start with us and be modeled by us, or if someone in the church comes to us, because you'll learn this, many of you already have, some of the best ideas that have ever come out of our church, they don't come from me. They come from people in the church. They come to the elders and say, hey, what about this? And I say, you know what, that's a really great idea. So sometimes the best way you can lead is to motivate the people with the good ideas. Say, yes, we love that. How can we help you make that happen? That's great. So it's not like you've got to come up with all these ideas like originally, but you do need to get behind and support the right things. And so, with that said, common obstacles to discipleship. I think and I just listed these. These were listed off the top of my head. These are things that I've just observed over the last 5 years. Pride. We do not want to be vulnerable. It goes against our nature. I think back to the garden. When God confronted Adam, Adam did not want to come to terms with his sin. This woman you gave me, she gave me the apple. And God goes to the woman. It was the serpent, we're so quick to shift the blame, and we don't want to own. We don't want to own our own sin, and that's pride. We don't want to be vulnerable. And so, the first time we show up to a discipleship group, because it looks good on paper. Oh yeah, discipleship. I'm a Christian. I should be doing that. Great. I'll join a discipleship group. But the first time somebody confronts me about my sin or says, brother, we need to work on that. Ooh, we get defensive. Discipleship sounds great until someone actually tells me, you're sinning, and we've got to stop. Suddenly, discipleship isn't so much fun because it wounds my pride. That's a common obstacle to discipleship. It is. We want to go into our discipleship relationships thinking we're okay, but the point is we're not okay. That's why we need discipleship. We're not okay. None of us is okay. And please, as I'm listing these, if you have thoughts along the way, please just throw your hand up and we'll discuss them by all means. Apathy. Meaning that we just don't care. We're apathetic. It's like one guy said to the other, "Are you ignorant or just apathetic?" He said, "I don't know and I don't care." But there can be apathy. In other words, people can think of their Christian life strictly in terms of their conversion. I've already been saved, so what's the point? I'm already a disciple of Christ. I continue. What is the point of continuing? And I think somebody mentioned altar calls, and I am not saying altar calls are always bad or inappropriate or anything like that. But I think that if I could speak broadly of the altar call culture, what it tells us is that, if you come forward and say the right prayer, you're okay. You're good for the rest of your life. Paul Washer is not okay with this. If you've seen Paul Washer, the shocking youth message. It's not true to think that I've said the prayer, I've converted, I don't need anything else. Well, that's simply not true. You could argue that the rest of the New Testament, the majority of the New Testament, is given to how we ought to live now that we're converted. There are specific instructions, but some people are apathetic. I don't need that. Exhaustion. Discipleship groups take a lot to plan. They take a lot to coordinate. You just get a discipleship group organized, they meet for 2 weeks, and then somebody's work schedule changes and they can't be a part of that one anymore. Oh, I get those emails weekly, you guys. I can't be in this group anymore. Can you find me a new one? Yes, I guess I will. It's exhausting. It is. It's hard to. They're hard to maintain. I mentioned him already. I'm gonna mention him again. My friend Craig, the farmer. I love what he models. He said, if I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. And the harvest can wait. My crops can wait. So he turns off his tractor, and he comes back to the house, and he washes up, and he goes to discipleship group. because he committed to do it. But they are exhausting to maintain. I think I told you in my own group, I've had 2 guys who haven't been there the last 3 weeks, and they do not have good excuses. That's exhausting. That's discouraging. It's very discouraging. What do we do when we get exhausted? Because they do take a lot to maintain. A common obstacle to keeping discipleship groups going, to keeping discipleship going. Here's one. Laziness. Just sloth, whatever you want to call it. Being a sluggard. Laziness. People just don't show up. Or this. I know some pastors who say this. When I ask them, what do you do for discipleship in your church? And their answer is, and here's it's a popular word in Christianity right now. We just let discipleship happen organically. Meaning we don't have any plan for it. And there might be 1 or 2 people in the church, who get together just to kind of chat about whatever. There's no structure. It's usually a real old guy and a young guy in his 30s who thinks old guys are cool. And they just kind of get together and talk. And really, they just kind of become buddies. But we let it happen organically. And so what that actually means is they have no program, they have no system for it. The leadership is not promoting discipleship. They are not telling people from the pulpit, which we should be, church, you need this. They're not doing that. For a number of reasons why. I think that because it takes so much work, and I think because it pushes back against individualism. I want my Christianity to be mine. I'll make friends with who I want to make friends with. I'll meet with whoever I want to meet with. You leave me alone. You preach a sermon to me on Sunday and stay out of the rest of my life. And pastors, unfortunately, say, okay. And I think that is, as they say, weak sauce. And I think that we're doing our churches a great disservice when we don't lovingly push them into this. Brothers, sisters, you're not okay. I know you're not okay, because I know I'm not okay. You need help in this life. We all do. But I think laziness or even fear, and I didn't list that here, but fear, as I'm thinking about it, I think church leadership teams maybe don't have a plan for discipleship because they don't want to scare their people away. They need people to show up on Sunday, and the minute I try to tell my church, okay, we have a plan, okay, who's ready to confess their sin, that might scare some people away. And so I think maybe some churches are fearful, which again, let me pause and say, I am so glad we built this into our church culture from day one. We started with this. So that has been really helpful to us because it was just an expectation. People knew immediately this is what we do as a church. And I think that has served us. Yeah. So someone joins the church, they're a member of the church, but they don't participate in a discipleship group. Yeah, we have not, so let me answer it this way. We do not make them mandatory. Some churches do. Like if you join the church, we will place you in a community group, in a discipleship group. We've decided not to do that. So, but I will say, I'd have to think about this. I think every member of our church is a part of one. But again, because we've laid the foundation that it is an expectation, when someone joins the church and I'm doing their membership, we do go through the membership class and we make it clear this is an we expect members to do this. And then when I do the pastoral interview for membership afterward, I bring this up specifically. Hey, just so we're clear, we expect our members to lead in doing this. So where we are at right now, it's not mandatory, but I think all of our members are doing it. So we specifically would not. If there was a member of the church who was not participating in community groups and discipleship groups, I would want to know why, and I would have that conversation with them. And we have a couple of people whose schedule, the way their schedules are with their work and everything, they're part of one but not the other. Say like, hey, I can come to community group, that's not a problem. It's really hard for me to make it to discipleship group. Okay. So we have not made that an issue to pursue discipline over. But at the same time, if there was a member of the church who was just choosing not to participate, they would very obviously stand out. Like it would be awkward, if that makes sense. But no, we haven't disciplined anybody for that. No. Good question though. Good question. Yeah. Selfish motives. Selfish motives. Someone might not want to join a group, or no, they're part of a group, but here's what makes discipleship groups hard. People want a discipleship group exactly fine-tuned to their specifications. So for example, I mentioned this earlier, some groups, people say, I want to be in a group only with other men who are in my exact season of life. Or if I'm single, I want to be with single guys. If I'm married, I want to be with married guys in my discipleship group. Okay, but at the same time, there are people who are just the opposite. Hey, I'm 24 and single. I hang out with people like that all the time. I want to be in a group with a 45-year-old guy because I feel like he would benefit me. I'm telling you, it is so. Sometimes I want to just say, okay, everybody, shut up. I'm putting all your names on a list, and I'm just going to assign them. You're with him and him. You're with him and him. Some days I want to do that because they are so hard to maintain. And everybody wants their discipleship group just so. And what I have found, though, and I really believe this, the gospel is such, I can be in a discipleship group with any group of men. And if the Spirit of God is genuinely in me and in them, we will all benefit. I don't care what season of life they're in. I don't care how different they are from me. It doesn't matter. A single 19-year-old guy can speak wisdom to me as a married man in my mid-30s. I can speak wisdom to a 70-year-old man. Because the common denominator is not, do we have children? Are we married? Are we single? Are we college? That's not the common denominator. The common denominator is the Spirit of God that lives in all of us. And so, I try to instill that. This is a challenge for us at our church. I try to instill that in people. Like, hey, you can benefit from people who are different from you. This is how we have unity in the gospel. We share the same Savior. We share the same sin. We were all enemies of God. Now we're His children. We have that in common. His Spirit lives in you. He lives in me. We both read the same book by the same God. Yes, of course we have something to say to each other. You don't have to have a wife to speak wisdom to me that will inform my marriage. So anyway, I would urge people, there is no perfect discipleship group. I told you about the guy. He's one of my best friends in the church now. And he was a member of an extremely conservative, unofficial militia, like an unofficial army for the state of Idaho. And we just had very little in common. But we were in the same discipleship group for a year and a half. He's one of my best friends now. Without the gospel, we never would have moved toward each other. But because of the gospel, we came together, we opened the Word together, we started talking, and now he's one of my closest friends. I can confide in him anything. That's what the gospel does, you guys. That's what it does. So, but selfish motives can get in the way. Here's a big one. Confusion about purpose. We find it common with both men and women, so I won't single out any gender, where discipleship group becomes something, or community group, if it's not guarded carefully, becomes something it's not supposed to be. It turns into, okay, we're going to talk about sports for half an hour, and then we're going to complain about our wives for 20 minutes, and then we'll pray for 35 seconds, and then we'll go our separate ways. Or it turns into social hour, just catching up. Or it turns into talking about, did you see the latest Marvel movie or whatever? It turns into something it's not supposed to be. People use it as a platform for something it's not designed. Listen, if you want social hour, do it on another time. That's not why we're here. And this is so hard to do. It is so hard because people, we get in the same space with our friends and we want to just talk about whatever. That's good to do, but not during discipleship group. We actually have a specific purpose for why we're meeting. If you want to catch up, add a half an hour to the end of your D group. Fine. But go through what you're meant to do here. Otherwise, it can just go in a million different directions. So people get confused about what we're actually doing. And the last one that came to the top of my head, a common obstacle to discipleship is opportunity for gossip. Let me give you the biggest example. I had a man come to me saying, we need help in my discipleship group. I said, why? What's going on? He said, I've noticed we're talking about our wives more than we're talking about ourselves. So, and they're talking about their wives' sin. In other words, my wife and I had a conflict last night. I come to D group this morning, and my temptation is to be like, well, my wife did this, and we talk about our wives and their sin for 90% of the time, and then at the very end, and anyway, so I reacted in anger and I sinned. Yeah, but you just told all these guys, like, they don't need to know that about your wife. Your discipleship group is to deal with your sin. When I go to discipleship, I'm dealing with my sin, not my wife's sin. I'm not there to confess my wife's sin. I'm there to confess my sin. So I have to protect my wife when I go to discipleship group. I can say, Jessica and I had a conflict last night. That's all I'm going to say. And then I'm going to go straight to my sin. And here's how I sinned in it. But what was happening in this one particular group is guys were talking about their wives' sin, and they were actually counseling each other. Well, you need to go back and tell your wife this, and she needs to submit to you, and all these things. And it's like, you guys, yeah, and it's like, you guys, that's not why we're here. What are you doing? What are you doing? So we had to deal with that. Women are capable of doing that as well. They go to discipleship group, and so we had a couple. They were spending more time talking about how another woman in the church wronged me, and it's so easy to make it sound like discipleship. So it's like, hey, tell me about your week. Oh, it was hard. I've been dealing with a lot of anger because so and so, and then they get into this whole story about how this other woman in the church, said something mean about me, these sorts of things. And you have to be very careful to not slander other people and to not excuse your sin because of what someone else did. That other person may be in sin. But right here at your discipleship group, your purpose is not to make other people look bad. It's not to address their sin. It's not why we're here. If there's something that needs to be addressed that you don't know how to address, come get an elder. Hey, I'm having a conflict with so-and-so, and I do not know how to navigate it. Would you come with me? Gladly, yes. Don't go to your D group and complain about other people in the church. That's not why you're there. Not why you're there. So these are common obstacles that we have seen, which begs the question, what do we do about them? What do we do about these? Because these things pop up. And I'll just give you a couple things to think about. You should be, as pastors, you need to communicate regularly with the men and women who are leading discipleship groups. In other words, don't go through like a 20-minute training once. Here's how you lead a discipleship group. Okay, have fun. Have fun. The elders meet with we meet with all of the discipleship group leaders, and there's a lot of them. We meet with all of them twice a year. We have a big meal. We invite all of them. And you know what we do at that meeting? We go over the same fundamentals of what it means to be a discipleship group leader every time. We have no new material. We're just reminding them, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're here. It's good that you're leading a discipleship group. Thank you so much. Just as a reminder, here's what you need to keep in mind. So you're constantly training them and retraining them. And of course, you're available to them too. If you're running into obstacles, please reach out to us. And they do. They do. I'm having this issue in my discipleship group. How should I handle that? So we have ongoing, an open door policy, ongoing communication with them. And we are intentionally meeting with all of them a couple of times a year. And even at those meetings, we're not talking about, when we say, what's hard in your discipleship group, we're not using specific names like, oh, I have this person, and it's, no. We're speaking very generally because we want to protect our brothers and sisters. So we're just doing ongoing training. We put it in our annual calendar. When are we doing our discipleship group meetings? With all the leaders, we're going to do one, in April. We're going to do another one in October. And we just make it a regular part of our rhythm. So you're just reminding them of the same things over and over. So guys, I'll just confess to you, that's been the biggest shock to me as a pastor is repetition. So much of what we do as ministers is repeating just the same good things over and over. So much of what we do. Reminding people, oh, this is why we do this. This is how we do it. Yep, let me bring you back to the center. This is how we counsel. This is how we lead a discipleship group. This is what we're going to do on Sunday. This is our philosophy of ministry. We're not coming up with fresh material on a week-to-week basis. We are, think of shepherds. They're not literal shepherds. What are they doing? Oh, nope. Quit wandering, sheep. No, we're back here. Nope, the grass is over here. Come on. Nope. Stay away from that wolf. We're back over here. No, this is what yep. We're doing the same good things. It's monotonous sometimes. It's repetitive. It is so good. We aren't discovering new facets of the gospel. Every stone has been unturned. We are helping the sheep apply the gospel to their life every day, week in and week out. And that is broadly what discipleship is, helping our church apply the gospel to their life all the time. And you are going to repeat yourself thousands of times. Take joy in it every time. Because every time you're repeating the same truth to someone, it's a wonderful privilege. I get to remind this person of who they are in light of what Christ has done. What a privilege. What a privilege. Don't let sin creep in and tell you that it's meaningless. Don't let sin creep in and tell you that it's boring. Don't let sin creep in and tell you that it serves no purpose. It absolutely does. That's the thing with sheep, and we are sheep as well. We need constant wrangling back in toward the center, back to where we're supposed to be. That's our job, you guys. That's our job. So if you're not interested in repeating the same things over and over, and meeting with the same people over and over, and telling people the same truths over and over, if you're not interested in that, you might want to consider going to sell insurance instead, or some other job. Because that's what we do as pastors. We're not reinventing anything. We're reminding people of the same glorious truths of what Christ has done and what that means for our lives day to day. So just be ready for the repetition. That's all. That's what I'm trying to say. There won't be new and exciting things every day, but you will repeat the same exciting truth every day. Does that make sense? You guys will get good at doing the same thing over and over and over. And there will be special cases. There will be hard situations where you think, ooh, we haven't faced this before. But guess what you do on that point? You pull open your phone and you say, I am so glad I am in touch with like several dozen other pastors who love me and who have been doing this for longer. Hey, how would you handle this? I mean, I call other pastors weekly to say, I'm facing something kind of new and hard. Have you faced anything like this before? They say, oh yeah, here's how we handle that. It's the same truth, but we're applying it to different situations. That's discipleship, you guys. So